Great stuff. No, thank you. And yeah, it's if only passion would, correlate with knowledge, I'd probably be the most knowledgeable person there is to be. But I think that people are becoming more passionate about poster design. I'd like to think that at least, because I think it kind of sits in the shadow of oral presentations and keynotes at conferences. And I think people are starting to think that it's just a kind of token that's applied at a conference. But I think there's still some ways that we can be effective in conferences with posters design. And we all go through poster design. It's horrendous sometimes. We love the research, but designing posters is just an absolute nightmare. We're not designers, we're not artists, and trying to blend the two, science with communication and design, is very difficult. I'm not perfect, but hopefully, I'd like today or just this evening, sort of the next 45 minutes, whatever it is just for us to all reflect kind of together. I think there's lots of ideas that we can kind of go around. We've all had good experiences, bad experiences with poster design. So just sharing those as a platform. And actually, what we tend to do within these sessions, if anybody has anything else that they want to share in terms of knowledge, we're always open for presentations. If you want to come and do a presentation on something that you're passionate about, we're always happy for you to come along and do that. So as mentioned before, any questions, put your hands up, and we'll just chat through this. I haven't got a clue how long this presentation takes, so it might be that we just have the discussion all the way through to make sure that we actually have some good discussion about it. But maybe we can just begin. So, yeah, we're going to talk about effective, whatever effective means, impactful, effective poster design in some way, shape, or form. So, we essentially want to, or how I wanted to kind of go about this was sort of practical tips and insights. It's probably more of a reflection on where we are with poster design right now. We can try and kind of understand and synthesize some good practices, some core components of what poster design should be, and then maybe reflecting on the future about where we can move with this and how you can be best positioned for sort of your poster presentation at the BPS and, of course, other conferences as well. So, bit of a just a conflict statement, of course. I'm founder of a startup focusing on digital solutions for poster communication, and I'm involved with the BPS Education Committee and chair of the ECR group, which is this one. There's no connection between the two, but just to kind of set the scene in that sense there. So, came across this over sort of the past year. I've been really passionate about poster design. Obviously, it's funny the word passionate. I think we're all passionate about many things. I guess interested in poster design is where I kind of sit, and I think I always come back to this kind of comment which says good research deserves good communication. It's not that it is essential in many sense, but it's more kind of emotional than that. It really deserves good communication. There's a lot of work that goes into research, and we all know that. So it deserves some good communication, and let's not forget about that. So, as a kind of list of what we'll go through today, I mentioned there the core principles, maybe touch on what works, what doesn't, and why. The good and bad real world poster examples. We can have a look at through some examples and see what we all think. Completely subjective. Spoiler alert: there might be some good points about some posters that we like, but other people don't. We'll then talk about the limitations of traditional poster formats in terms of scientific communication, and then talk about communication strategies that support and enhance your poster. The recurring theme here is that the poster is one very small part of your communication, that your key points that you're trying to get across, for example. So, as a bit of a reflection, of course, well done for everybody getting your posters accepted. That's a great achievement. I'm excited for you all to present at this year's conference. No extra information, Joe, in terms of the session itself. You mentioned poster walks, which is fantastic. Anything else that everybody would like to know right about now, or is it just kind of turn up and enjoy, as it were?
So the conference team will be sending quite detailed poster guidelines. If you haven't received them yet, they will come to you, as well as detailed notes on the poster walk, which we're just finalising right now. But if you do have any questions, don't feel like you can't get in touch. Definitely email us. I'm happy to help as well. and the conference team are also there to support. So if no questions, I'll hand back to you, Nathan.
Great stuff. Thank you. And I've just kind of noticed and realized in the top right, you will see Northumbria University. That's my institution. I'm a postdoc there on a project there. So you will see that there as well. So this is kind of how I feel a lot doing research. I think we all might resonate with this. We're all kind of deep into the research. We're most familiar with it. We know the ins and outs of methodologies. Um, Information synthesis, data analysis, and even report writing. So I feel that most of us are most comfortable in this kind of situation, staring at a computer, not thinking about the other parts of the research process. Some might be familiar with the NIHR kind of research cycle. Again, it's circular, and there's many different parts from prioritizing the concept that you're thinking about, commissioning, of course, from funding perspective, designing the research, undertaking it, implementing it, and evaluating it. Big circle, which I think we're all familiar with. And we sit, or poster design sits the dissemination part, which is a core component. And I feel like if you don't consider dissemination seriously, this cycle breaks and it becomes difficult to keep this going. So I think it's a real core component of what we should consider. There's some really good examples from last year's conference. I don't think people would be too bothered about me sharing these images. These were images from posters from last year, so you get a little bit of a flavor of kind of what's delivered there. There's some really good stuff. You can see eye-catching different colors. And we'll go into much more detail about the quality or the perceived quality of those. But this is where you can kind of imagine yourself in a couple months' time with your poster up on the display board. So I really want to try and think about what I might consider as the core concepts. I don't like to say core concepts, but things to maybe that we need to think about when we consider poster design. Now, maybe you can kind of confirm these or, sort of deny these, whatever. So I think sitting at the root is a clear core message. It should really, your poster should really communicate one central idea or finding. Of course, there can be many other key sort of findings, specific statistics that can span off this, but ideally, it should be one central concept that you've managed to kind of develop from your research. Viewers should be able to take that away within seconds of looking at a poster. And it's interesting because people always say to me, well, seconds isn't a lot of time. It's actually much easier than you think to try and get people to do that. There's also, the core is visual hierarchy. This is different to a research paper that you might have written. Visual hierarchy is incredibly important. The most important elements must stand out immediately. And there's many ways we can do this, but generally differences in size, text size, where you put it on the poster, you can really guide people through where you want them to read without actually being there. It's really interesting, but that's obviously something to think about. Something that I've kind of coined as scannability is probably not the best way to determine it, but essentially it's appreciating that most people will engage with your poster in a matter of seconds. So the information that you have on there must be easy to scan, must be very quick for people to do. You have the privilege at the BPS this year to have a 5-minute presentation, but generally as people are walking through, they will spend maybe 30 seconds at your poster, then move on to the next one. So can you demonstrate your message in 30 seconds? Of course, posters are an extension of the manuscripts and the research papers that we've created, so there has to be visual evidence. I don't think there's ever been a poster created which is just essentially words just on its own. I don't even know if we'd consider that as a poster. But of course, visual evidence, figures, charts, diagrams should really communicate most of the message that you want to send. There should be a logical flow. This kind of links with visual hierarchy, is that the content should be easy to follow. People should know exactly where the next step is because you're not always going to be at the poster to direct them. So should be able to follow that process all the way through. And ultimately, this is the biggest thing that I've become an advocate for, or I'm most interested in, is it's a conversation catalyst. It really shouldn't be that you create a poster, you put it up, and then you come back. Next time you see it is at the end of the conference, taking it down on the last day. Really should be using that as a tool to engage in conversation with people at the conference. And again, it's an extension of your work rather than communicating every single detail of your work, a highlights reel, if you like. This is kind of what I would see as there's probably more concepts, but these are the ones that stand out to me most. And of course, when we're reflecting on poster design, I don't know where we sit currently. It's really interesting discussion. So a lot of people, and myself included, were confused about making things super experiential, really pushing the boundaries on visual communication, which is really difficult for us, or most of us, because we're not trained in graphic design, etc. But I see us kind of sitting somewhere in a continuum here. So on the left side, typical design. I think we're almost familiar with it. Very specific sections. I think this represents the manuscript very closely. It will often have the same structure as the manuscript. Whereas on the right-hand side, we have, it's up to interpretation. There's still some information on there, but it's the complete opposite of really what we're used to. And I think as we progress through time, we might shift more and more to the right-hand side, where we start seeing posters which have very, very little text, but engage people in discussion. Where's the right place to sit? I guess it depends on your discipline, depends on what you want to communicate. But ultimately, I don't think we should be at either one of these. We should be somewhere in the middle, I think. So I've never seen this movie. And probably people will criticize me for never seeing this movie, but it's, of course, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's have a look at some posters and some examples of what could be considered good or bad. Now, I want to preface this with saying that, some people might think these ideas are good. Some people might think these designs are bad. Some are really obvious. Some are not so obvious. There's no correct answer. There's no wrong answer. So I've literally gone onto Google and just quickly copied and pasted some posters. I've not really looked at them myself. So this is the first time I'm looking at it more broadly. So I'd invite anybody, if you have any opinions about this poster, we'll fly through them just to make sure we can get through the content. But my immediate kind of thoughts, bearing in mind, first sort of 20, 30 seconds, is you have to be very close to be able to read this. I think it's a very obvious one to begin with. Let me just see if I can open chat there, just so I can see if anybody pops in. Yeah, the contrast is really difficult. It's making it very, very difficult for anybody to read this. I'm not actually entirely sure if anybody used this as a poster, but it's a good example, a very extreme example of contrast, the use of color, and of course, big bodies of text in that kind of middle part. Anything that's good about it, I would say that the layout's familiar. If I wanted to know where the title for the research was, I'd know where to go. I knew it was at the top. I know that the authors are probably underneath that and the affiliations are probably underneath that. I know where the structures are, where the sections are. So there are some good points. I'm familiar with this structure. Something might call it IMRAD structure, which we might cover. But generally, not so good, I think. Too much text. Yeah, absolutely. Too much text, for sure. Another example. This kind of goes a little bit differently. I like the banner across the top. Again, put some comments in. Let's see what everybody thinks. I'm just trying to drag chat open without progressing on the slides.
Feel free to unmute if you like, guys, if it's easier as well.
Absolutely.
It just seems really busy to me. There's so much going on there. And then there's this bright colored thing under the results that doesn't really make any sense to look at.
Yeah, do you know what? I was so busy with everything else, I didn't even spot that. And it's, I don't know what that is. I think it's when you hit a plasma television and it just does all the lines, right? I think.
Yeah, I don't know where to look first. Like, I don't know what information I should be reading at what time. I'm all over the place. I would walk by this, to be honest. It's too much for my brain to take in.
And then there seems to be this weird picture of, I don't know what it is in the bottom, but they look like cows or horses or something.
And there's a ger. There's a...
Yeah.
Oh, they're Mongolian yaks or something.
Yeah. I think this is the journey on the way to the conference. I think maybe what they're showing there. But I think this is a good example, and it's not so much to criticize. It's really just for us to reflect on good design. And here we have some really nice graphs, which I'm sure are very specific and reflect the results very, very well. But generally, when you're looking at something like this, your eyes don't know where to go. You don't know what to look at first. There's no logical flow, like we mentioned before. Some positives. I think it's much more brighter than normal. They've got some really nice living, I guess, examples of images, which are quite nice on posters as well. But generally, I would say not so good. Another example, again, lots of text, a nice banner across the top. The title's easy to read, but any of the content is really difficult to read. Graphs in the middle. Again, I'd have to get really close to see this. There's a bit of white space below the banner and the top of the information, which is prime real estate. You'll know that the space on your poster is prime real estate. So any wastage isn't really encouraged. And again, yeah, Christine, absolutely right. Too much text. Yeah, absolutely. Moving into something else, I think this is sitting much better. I think a nice central kind of core component with some nice pictures. There seems to be pictures, but also a graph. It seems to be some connection between the images here. The text, there's not a lot of text, which is good. I would actually go on the not so good for some of the text saying too many bullet points. I quite like a good blend between a narrative and bullet points. I think there's a dance between the two. QR code, which is nice. Too much text still interesting. Yeah, absolutely. We have a nice title. We have the affiliations in the top left, top right. I don't think it's too bad. Still too much text, but better bullet points. Good images. Yeah, I think we're kind of shifting towards I want to say gooder. It's been a long day. The gooder side. Okay, a couple more examples. So this is starting to get a bit more flamboyant. There's much more kind of focus on the design aspect. Colors, I think the palette is a little bit too overpowering here. So you can stick to a palette, but then it can be a bit over too much. I don't know where the priority is here. I'm not sure exactly where my eyes should be going apart from the title in the middle. I think the text is structured quite nicely. QR code could be a bit more prominent to engage. You see where we're going with this type of stuff. Hopefully it's giving you a bit of a flavor as to what's might be good, what might not be so good. Again, another example, nice headline at the top, good engagement on the left, it's a nice poster. I quite like this example. I think this is really nice. Separate sections, some qualitative feedback in there as well. I think this is quite nice, this one. Yeah, much better, Christine, right? Much better. I saw this one and I added this one in specifically because it's not necessarily for the poster. The poster is really nice. Central graphic, complementary information around the side, nice clear title. You've got your sponsors at the bottom, extra information on who the presenter is. Nice. But they've also got, which I've never seen this before, is tiny printed out versions of the poster as little handouts, which I thought was quite nice. So you can just see them on the left-hand side there. So people can take one and go away, which I thought was a nice little compliment. And as you move through poster design, there are these little extras that you can kind of do to make your message better. So again, just a point about visual hierarchy, and it does work. If you do it right, it absolutely does work. But interestingly, the missus, she's a solicitor. I asked her to look at this image and she read the bit that I read last, she read it first. And I don't know if that's because she's used to kind of the kind of contracts and stuff and reading every line with detail, but generally, hopefully this worked for you as well. So you can direct people's eyes for those posters that we struggled with where to look. You can do it. And obviously this is an example, nice big bold, then a little bit of a logic going down, and then the smaller the text, you will tend to read last. So I want to go into just a bit more detail about a good example. I would consider this as a really nice example. I don't think you can do too far wrong. Again, please let me know what you think is not so good, because not all posters are perfect, but I think generally this is a pretty good example. There's some good points and good structures on this, i.e., engaging and cohesive visuals. The visuals kind of match each other in terms of color, in terms of design. Institutional details are on there. I think that's really important. People need to know where this work is coming from. You have an informative title, which may or may not match the manuscript as well. I feel like there's logical flow here. Does anybody have an opinion on the flow? I feel like if we kind of go back to it being sort of a bit further away, if I can go back, my eyes go straight to the introduction and the picture, and then down to the research question. I don't quite go to conclusions yet. A little choppy visually with boxes of different sizes. Interesting. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Maybe having boxes the same size would help the flow. Do you think the different size boxes helps with some form of flow and grouping certain elements? For example, the top parts of the results and discussion are separate to the changes identified and recommendations. Maybe it's a nice way to split that information. Again, but the point is that there's clear key points there. So it can be done. You know, these are the type of things that we need to be looking for. I'm going to give you some examples of posters that I've made now, so you can you can give whatever feedback you like.
We should have brought our scoring paddles, Nathan.
Should have brought your scoring pad. Exactly. We might have ended the presentation early if that was the case. But I thought I'd share some because, look, we're not all perfect, so I wouldn't worry about too much about being, getting it right or wrong. I think there's ways that you can learn. There's something, that you can do in terms of reflecting after. So this was a poster that I did. It was focused on virtual reality, digital tech, and health literacy. I think the findings come out straight away with a little bit of color in the middle, kind of makes sense. And with the grayed out parts, etc., a couple of graphs and things. Lots of space. I really liked the QR code kind of section on this one. If I didn't say so myself, because that kind of tips to future work. That bottom right section, it really focuses on future work. So a little bit of a one which I was quite happy with. Another one, again, a really different kind of design. I can't remember what conference this was for. Might have been the EFIC Congress last year, maybe. Again, a landscape version, trying to make the color palette the same. You have the standard QR code in the top right, the title, QR code in the bottom, and the conclusion hopefully stands out just a little bit. The graphs are we really wanted to show the data in this kind of research.
That's a really good poster. I really like this one. I think it's really clear.
We also, I think, the qualitative bit in the middle might have, I think, a bit of a criticism. I might have wanted that to stand out a little bit more, maybe. I think it gets lost a little bit.
Yeah, that would have been nice, maybe with that purple background with the white text
on the actual box. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's a good standout. Yeah, great stuff. And another poster again. We've made many different posters. This one was very much kind of a quick effort. You can probably tell there's lots of text on here. Very much a kind of, this is the methodology. We want people to participate, scan the QR code, and we showed a little bit of the resources as well. So, it's not going to be perfect every time, but I think that you can learn from the posters that you're going to make and have made previously. And of course, you will also learn about the requirements for the posters. This was a poster. I don't know if it was BPS last year. I think it was.
Well, we will be we're size AO.
Okay.
Portrait. Okay, our poster boards are portrait.
So don't print it like this, because you will have to curve it around the corner for it to be in.
Note to self: don't do landscape.
Don't do landscape unless you want people to read it on the side.
It's a nice poster, and we deal with that a lot at conferences. I think also it's maybe a cost thing. You've done that for another conference. We see that a lot, and we understand. We do our best to help. The conference team will do their best to help you with that. Also, the cloth posters sometimes on the poster board. I don't know if you've got experience of using them, but they'll do their best to help you with what you've got. So don't worry too much, I guess, if that's an issue for you.
Yeah. The cloth ones are great for transport because they don't crease, but they're generally a bit of a nightmare when you get there. So we will go through lots of different designs, and I don't know if if one of the main issues, if it's an issue, you could say it's an issue, but one of the main things that people seek is ideas about posters. I need some design ideas. I need to find out what suits me. You can get loads of them. This took me maybe 3-4 minutes just on LinkedIn. You can go onto LinkedIn, search academic poster or poster, and there's so many. I have so many screenshots on my phone. It's ridiculous of people and their posters. It's a bit obsessive, but it helps me keep on top of designs, and it's really nice. You do find those little gems. So I say that you should really go through something like LinkedIn to get some inspiration. Okay, let's go
just before you move on, Nathan, sorry, Christine has a question.
Yes, sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
Sorry, I just I noted that in the guidelines for the poster, you said that we need to send a digital version as well because it's going to be included in a digital format. Will that be on a smartphone app or something? I'm just thinking,
yeah.
Do we need to look at it so that if someone's looking at on a small smartphone, it's still easy to see as well?
So how it works, Christine, is on the conference app, when they click on your name or they click on your poster, they will, it'll be linked and there'll be an option to have a PDF version of it. But what they can do is they can just copy the link. So it opens up on a web page and they can just copy the link and, put it on their WhatsApp or email and they'll be able to view it on a bigger screen. But yeah, the option is there on the app. And it can be quite hard. People will say, oh, I can't see that is small, and you can zoom in, and sort of work your way through the poster. But it's just to give people that extra exposure, especially like trying to encourage again sharing and ensuring that people can have a look in advance if they want to see some particular topics, or maybe they don't get a chance to connect with you in person but they see your poster on the app and then they can drop you a message and maybe arrange something to meet up like virtually or at the conference. So that's kind of the reason we're doing it. But yes, it will be on the phone app, but there is a possibility for people to just sort of copy that into a sort of web browser on a computer with a bigger screen.
I guess that's just something to bear in mind, isn't it? When we're writing text, it's just like to keep it to the minimum.
It's a really great point. Thinking about the extension of your poster, the longevity, which we'll cover a little bit in terms of the future. Thinking about how is it viewed on your phone, and that's a really, really good point.
I would have a question, Nathan.
Of course.
Sorry. It's about the material of the poster itself, because in some congresses, I have already made I've been to congresses where the posters were digital, like we had to just, make it digital and it would be shown on a screen. And in other cases, I have printed the poster in a good quality quality paper, just like the couché paper, which is a bit more shiny. I would like you to tell us a little bit about what you think is better, like, okay, a more opaque material, a shiny. I mean, what do you think?
I think this is a great question, because you can go for, and I think when you go to a lot of printing services, they do offer lots of different ways to print your poster. It can be on different types of paper, can be card, can be cloth, of course, now, which is becoming much more popular for people traveling internationally. I think one thing is well, the first thing would be is to obviously check the guidance from the conference. Some conferences can be very, very specific about the material that you use. Aside from that, you obviously have free reign. If the conference doesn't mention the specific material that needs to be printed on, you can have free reign. If we're thinking about, I guess you can split it up into the categories of normal paper, if you want to say normal paper in a sense, glossy print, which sounds like, Afonso, that's what you've gone for, and then a material, if we can kind of put it into those three categories. Anyone let me know if there's another category. I would always 95% of the time stay away from material, from cloth, because it just doesn't look as professional. You lose some of the intricacies of the detail in the cloth as well. Also, I think you've made the right move in that I think paper, it can really be patchy as to the quality. I think there's not so much an expectation, but generally when you're walking along posters, I think 90% of people will use the glossy print. And it gives clarity for QR codes. It also stands out. It makes it the colors a little bit more punchy as well. So I think one side of me says, don't worry too much. print it on whatever you can. It will look fantastic either way. But on the other side, if you're able to, I'd say just simple glossy A0 if that's the size every time. I think that's, and it's fairly priced as well, I think.
One thing on the opaque is we never know the color of the poster board itself. So it could be black, it could be dark blue, it could be dark grey. That's what I've known mostly in the UK. So if you have a sort of solid white background there, or some sort of solid background, not opaque, it's not going to be affected by whatever's going on behind.
And it reacts better to cameras, QR codes, interactivity, etc., etc. Sam, go ahead.
I just wondered if you recommended any software or like any graphic design tools to help create the poster.
Yeah, this is a big issue, and I say this is a big issue as I mentioned at the beginning. I'm the founder of trying to create solve the problem of this, which has actually proven incredibly difficult. I'm 8 months into developing, and we're still not there yet. The best that I used, of course, for my amazing posters that I showed before, of course, is Canva. We're all familiar with Canva. I think that's the best approach. They have some really nice templates on there. The issue with Canva is it's not built from a research perspective. It's very much a design perspective. So you won't get the small intricacies of logical flow. You have to figure that out yourself. No QR codes, no kind of a dedicated space in what you would see typically on a poster. So from the design perspective, I would always use Canva right now. I would say keep an eye out for other systems coming out, for example. But generally, there aren't very good processes out there. The best approach would be to use Canva to find a template. If there's no good templates on Canva, find an example that you like on the internet and try and replicate that in Canva, I think is the best approach. The free version gives you quite a lot of room in terms of what graphics you can use. All of my posters, all of my graphics are made in Canva. I think that's the best approach at this point. Or Adobe if you use Adobe and such like that.
Okay, thank you.
Christine, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just had a question going back to the printing. Would you recommend getting it laminated? I'm just thinking because it makes it last a bit longer, because I've had posters up before and I'm trying to put them up or take them down and I get given one tiny little bit of stuff to stick it up and it ends up tearing or and sometimes you might want to use it again for other things. So
I think that's a great solution. I've never had a laminated poster, nor have I seen one in the sense of full lamination like you used to have in school, the A4 sheets where you get the margin on the edge. The only thing with lamination, I think, is that it's not very folding friendly. So if you were to put it into your tube to carry it, I can't imagine you would be guaranteed not to get like wrinkles along the sheet. It's a great point though if you want to reuse posters.
Because I was thinking of going with material one this time because I saw it at a previous conference, but I've listened to everything you said and I'm thinking no, maybe that's not such a good idea, so I've gone back to the idea of perhaps laminating it.
And I think, look, I think that one other kind of thing that you might want to consider is that these posters that we create, we might want to reuse them, but I would probably argue against reusing them exactly. I think there's some good feedback that you can take from a conference. Maybe you had done your 5 minutes presentation and there was just a message you just couldn't get across. And when you looked to your poster, it just wasn't connecting right. If you print it in paper, you can then just go away, change it and just print another one, right. And react to when you present at conferences. I think there's some value there, but you're not, I don't think it's a ridiculous idea to go and do that. I think that's fair. Trial and error,
Just one thing on the lamination, because I used to run conferences before, I have seen them just be careful with the light reflection.
I
so
thought
just be very careful
too.
about the sort of colors you use and whether they're still going to be able to be seen. But I mean, I think we have to think more sustainably, and any way we can do that. Is it more sustainable to reprint a poster in paper, or is it more sustainable to use plastic? It's one of those, we always have these debates, and it's a hard decision. But I
Yeah.
mean, I would say most people are quite understanding. Yes. I think you've all been there, right? At least trying to make things work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Oh,
if that's
Heather,
any help, but
I can see Heather's put something in the chat. Heather, about PVC posting.
PVC, yep, yep. Again, look, I think I would advocate for, and I think that's a great point, Joe. Actually, conferences are becoming much more conscious, and they have a responsibility to.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if now or in sometime in the future, where they just reject any posters, for example, PVC or heavily laminated. So I think the effort, not that there's much effort in choosing the type of material that you print on, but there's much more value in paying much more attention to the information that's on the poster itself. I think if you just go paper every time, you can't be ridiculed for that type of thing. I think it's the safest approach, if that makes sense.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, great stuff. So I just wanted to, hopefully it's helpful to just to go through what we mentioned before about those kind of core concepts and what's good about them, what's not so good, and kind of why it matters, as I mentioned again, what works, what doesn't work, and why. So clear core messages, again, we're looking at short sections, bullet points, but not too many bullet points, a good blend between the two, getting your message across. What posters shouldn't do is include entire manuscript information, copy and paste. I don't think many people do this, but it's very easy to do that. You've already written it once, so it's only natural to write in the same way. And this because, again, conference audiences make a decision to engage within a few seconds. And if it's not immediately visible, your poster will not get read. It's as simple as that. Again, visual communication. These are the types of ways that you can communicate findings quickly, which is a big part of poster design. Large paragraphs describing results in a narrative way completely will just get lost, unread, and it's a waste of time, really, because people process visuals much faster than text. We all know how information works. Again, visual hierarchy, use large titles, headings, and well-defined sections rather than making all the text appear at the same size. Give it some logic, give it some natural flow to guide the reader's eye. When a reader comes to see your poster, they want to be fixed on something, and then from that point, they want to be guided. And you can do that via text size, colors, all this type of stuff. Keeping it concise, of course, short and punchy sections, which are designed for quick scanning. So it's not just about the information in the sections, but also the headings need to be very, very understandable very quickly. And again, clean layouts. Not an overcrowding of information with way too many elements, but also not a sparsity or a real estate that's missing. There is a balance to be had. White space does improve readability, but beware that too much white space can really put people off, and it might look empty. And of course, for the engagement, this is a real part that I feel a lot of people fail with, is using clear conclusions, contact information, discussion points to guide conversations away from the poster. It frustrates me a little bit when I see posters that have no invitation for conversation. Ask me about this. If you want to get in touch, let's do this, because that's why we're at conferences. Be really bold with this. Even give a QR code to say, this is a QR code that goes directly to my email. I think one of the previous conferences, I had a QR code on my poster where people scanned it. It automatically wrote an email saying, hi, I've seen your poster at this conference. Let's connect. So all they had to do was scan it and click send. Easy peasy. There's the connection made. That's what the value is at the conferences. Of course, I'm stuck in the Stone Ages a little bit, I think, with a lot of what we're doing. I think traditional posters try to replicate the manuscript structures specifically. So there's something called IMRAD principles, which is introduction, methods, results, and discussion. It works really well for papers, not always the case in posters. I would say try and break away from the typical introduction, methods, results, discussion section. Introduction could be something about background or what we began with or what we've been learning. These type of more active comments and headers are usually quite good. Something different, something engaging. Again, most posters are at the minute designed for passive viewing, no interaction, no consideration for deep kind of conversation. Printed posters always present a sort of a fixed snapshot. They don't really think more broadly about the research journey, which is a nice way for posters to kind of fit. The manuscript can't really do that in such an eloquent way. Posters can. Physical posters, like manuscripts, can obviously limit how much information you can put on. Well, I was talking about the real estate. It's incredibly valuable, so obviously be conscious of that. This one, again, kind of still in the Stone Ages, with small text, dense layouts, complex figures. People think the more complex the figure is, the better it is. Absolutely not. It needs to be understandable. It needs to be coherent with the work. And of course, thinking about accessibility with colors, text sizes, etc., etc. And of course, as we mentioned, typical that posters are usually viewed for a very, very short time. So we need to address these. One thing that we want to focus on is the communication aspect. So maybe we shift a little bit to the 5 minutes of fame that you're going to have in terms of defending your poster. It's not a defense, but just trying to invite people to have a discussion about your poster. So these little concepts. So absolutely prepare a pitch. And a pitch doesn't have to be a half an hour lecture. It can be something even 30 seconds is quite long. I would probably say something around the 20-second mark. A clear 20-second summary of your research that helps communicate the message quickly and encourages further discussion. At the conference, it's likely you're going to be bumping into people away from your poster. They're going to ask, have you got any work here? You say yes. They're going to say, what is it? And you'll have 20 seconds just to rile off this script that you've had, and it will give them everything that they need. For example, question we started with was actually quite very simple. Why do people in the same injury experience such different levels of pain? That's very, very quick, gets the conversation going. Of course, focus on your key insights. One thing I like to say to people is, if there's just one thing that I want you to take away from this poster, it's this. One line, nice and simple. They can take that away. They can remember that. Try and make it sticky. Just focus on what's key. Again, adapt to your audience. Try and find out who you're speaking to. Are they clinicians? Are they researchers? Try and make it relevant to them. You can even always, as a fail-safe, if you don't know who you're talking to, if they're clinician researcher, link it to the patient. It always matters for the patient. So if we think this from a patient's point of view, etc., etc. Of course, use the poster. This seems a bit silly, but use the poster to encourage discussion. If someone asks, or if you're struggling to, just like I am now, I guess, struggling to talk about a concept, take them to your poster, show them some of your figures, see if it can engage in some sort of conversation there. Be open to feedback, be open to discussion, encourage. What do you think about this? Have you done any work in this space before? How did you go about that? Do you think we should have done that in a different way? Really, really helpful. And of course, ultimately, try and leave a lasting connection with this individual who you're speaking to, or group of individuals. Kind of a final comment, something like, I can tell this connects with your work. Maybe we can pick up this conversation later. I know you want to look at other posters. I'd love to hear about your work. If you have a poster, let's do that. And then you can take some information. Or the one at the bottom, which I think I use God knows how many times at every poster conferences. I know you'll have a lot more to read at the conference. So if you just want to scan this QR code, and then you can read it a little bit later, you've got your scan and you can get on your way. Really think about the importance of communication away from poster design. So if I was to try it, I know I'm conscious of the time trying to fly through, conscious of the process by which we can actually create a poster. This is what I would take. So define the purpose of your poster. What is it exactly that you're wanting to achieve? Do you want people to scan a QR code to get involved with research? Do you want people to read your poster? Or do you want to be known as someone who's doing research in this space? You have to think about that. What's the one message you want to send? Select the relevant content from your manuscript. You shouldn't select it all. It should be relevant for your aim. It shouldn't represent the full manuscript. Focus on the key elements that are essential for understanding, for example, the research problem, how people can get involved, your key findings. Then translate that into visuals. This is actually quite a difficult part, so do spend a bit of time on this if you can, is create figures, charts, and diagrams that communicate your findings clearly. You might be able to take them from the manuscript, but it's unlikely. You might have to do some designing here. Ask me at the end. I do have a tool that's not mine, but I think is quite nice. Design the layout and flow. Arrange the sections. Don't go for a typical kind of process, introduction, methods, results, if it doesn't make sense for your research. Put the information on, move it around, see what happens, see where your eyes go. Of course, then keep refining. You need plenty of time to design these posters. Adjust the text length, the font size, the spacing of different elements, see where your eyes go. Ask your family members, look at this poster, give it to them for 10 seconds and let them tell you what they think about the information that's in there. And then, of course, prepare for engagement. You need to make sure that on this poster, there is enough for someone to go, I need more information. Sometimes you can even intentionally leave information out so that people will ask you about it. That's a nice way to get people to engage in a conversation. Those are kind of the steps that I would broadly take to creating a poster. And we're making our way through again. Lovely.
Nathan, just one question here. Do you
Go
think
ahead.
it's absolutely necessary that the title of the poster totally matches the title of the abstract?
I will let you answer this, Afonso. What are you thinking?
I don't think so. I
I
just
think
wanted to make sure.
no, absolutely. Look, it's an extension of your manuscript. If what I quite like is something like headlines. If there's a headline that you can give, almost like a newspaper headline, and it makes sense for the design that you're using, it makes sense for the message that you want to send, absolutely use that. Does that mean that you shouldn't use the title of your manuscript? No, it's absolutely fine to do so. What I would say is which one sends your message best? 9 times out of 10, a headline will grab people's attention more than what a title of a manuscript will. But
And some
a title of a
manuscript titles are very, very long as well,
yeah,
right, Nathan?
they're long, but they are familiar to some people. So it is a balance. But yes, I would say think about maybe using something else if you feel like it should be. So what type of design, what type of poster design? There's so many out there for my data. My data is going to be specific. How do I know what's going to complement it? So studies that are kind of data driven, quantitative findings, a lot of stuff that you want to represent there should have plenty of figures on them. These are good/bad/meh examples. Take with them what you will, but just trying to illustrate the point that if you're data-driven studies, people will want lots of graphs, lots of data for them to go through. Again, you can go over the top, so bear that in mind. If it's a sort of conceptual or theoretical framework, this is where the diagrams come in. There might already be some diagrams that you can use, but something kind of centralized around the middle, and then obviously all the conceptual framework coming from around it might be quite nice. Where you have a central component of the theoretical or conceptual framework, then everything comes from the outside. Something to consider there. If there's anything methods focused, then this is where we start to focus on hierarchy and process and layout. So the process orientated process. So arrows to help people guide through the methods that you've taken and any processes that you've taken. If it's applied or clinical research, of course, it's not dichotomous. It's not one or the other. But if it's more kind of applied or clinical research, some like problem solution structures. So making it more applicable for non-researchers. So clinicians, students, maybe even patients sometime, being a bit softer on the scientific language as well. And then if it's exploratory, narrative, maybe some more qualitative stuff, then it's obviously the story that you want to be describing and showing rather than kind of the hard, raw data. So there's some examples there. Talking about the future, where we're going, and I want people to advocate for this and push the boundaries of poster design. QR codes, I think, are essential now and have become more recently. Joe, you mentioned there about QR code analytics, something that I'm passionate about and I think is hugely missing, is people being able to scan the QR code and that connection happening in the QR code rather than at the conference. Conference, you're limited to your personal being somewhere, hiding and getting some fresh air, most likely. But the QR code is a good way to connect people. So if you can add a QR code that tracks analytics, then that would be super helpful. Of course, provide links to videos, podcasts. If anyone hasn't seen the Google, I think it's Google Notebook or Google LM. I can't remember what it is. I haven't used it for a while, but you can put your research into that and it will create a podcast So you can have a QR code that scans and people can listen to a podcast whilst they're at the conference. Nice. Of course, audio, digital, accessible versions. Christine, you mentioned about being on the phone. Digital posters, moving graphics, things like GIFs, interaction, live knowledge mobilization, thinking more towards a kind of active learning, if you like. Then maybe we'll move away from IMRAD. So tailor the sections and the messages to the research itself rather than a section that's called discussion. Maybe it can be the theme that you found within your qualitative research, something like that. And I think one of the biggest ones as well is collaborating with design and SciComm experts. You're the researcher, you're the one who's really good at research, but you're not always the communications or design expert. So reach out to people to help you in designing your poster. Kind of looks a little bit like this, but probably more like this as we move to more digital solutions. Couple of kind of resources on there. That first link is a nice category or is a nice library of some designs which we haven't covered today. And the other two are probably the same. They're useful, whatever they are, but I think it's more of a library for posters. And then that's just a screenshot of the system I'm trying to develop, which helps create posters. Lots of bits and bobs moving, but we are slowly getting there. So yes, apologies, we've gone a couple of minutes over. Any questions, any thoughts? Hopefully that's helpful. I think there's some nuggets in there, maybe. But yeah, let me know. Any questions or anything is great.
We will receive guidances on dates. We have a deadline to send the digital format and things like that. We are yet to receive that, right?
Sorry, I'm not part of the conference organising team, but Afonso, I can find out for you. I think you'll be receiving this information very soon because we are very, just tying up a few things here about the poster walk. So let me check and I can come back to you and let you know what date you're going to be getting that. But I think, the team are working on it and they'll like to give you plenty of time as well. But yeah, you'll definitely get all the guidelines, when you need to be there, put your poster up, take your poster down, sizes, blah, blah, blah. It'll all be there. I'm just seeing in the chat that this is, there's a few questions there, Nathan. So let me just read them out. Can we have a copy of the slides from Jilly? But I think she's had to step out now. We'll certainly be able to share this recording. I don't know about the slides, but we'll certainly share what Nathan has shared with us today, and we'll let you know about the slides. Nicola's asked, what's the data tool that you talked about?
Yeah, so the link is in here. There's lots of tools and stuff coming out. This one I've partnered with my startup, and they provide the graphs in my system. So again, check the terms and conditions and everything of the use of AI. Of course, it's slowly becoming embedded in everything that we do, but double check. Mm-hmm. But this system is called napkin.ai. Essentially, you can upload some text and it will turn it into a graph for you. I found it to be really helpful. Explore that, might be helpful.
And we can share the links that Nathan shared with us at the end with the indexes. And we can also share your product, Nathan. Just so you know, this is not affiliated with the BPS at all, but we're very happy if you want to try it. I don't know what the deal is with that at the moment, Nathan, but if you want to give us some information, we can pop it in an email to everybody as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that.
Are there any other questions for Nathan at the moment? Otherwise, lots of thank yous there, Nathan.
Thank you. That was so helpful. Thanks so much.
Great. And you can reach out to me via email if you need to with any questions. More than happy to answer. But good luck with the designs. I'm sure they will be fantastic. Save your designs as well. Make sure you save them because then you can reflect on them in the future and you can share them.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Sorry we ran a little bit over. I'm sure everyone's hungry now. Maybe time to go make dinner and relax for the evening. I hope so. But if you have any questions at all for either of us, please reach out. We'll do our best to get all the information to you. And either tomorrow or on Monday. I'm in more interviews tomorrow, so sorry if I don't get around to sharing the recording then, but I'll try my best. And I look forward to seeing you guys in Harrogate. Please do come and say hello. Nathan, you're going to be there, right?
I'm trying my best to be there. I am trying my best. Such is
I will
the funding
definitely be
life.
there. Yeah, it's not easy, is it? Well, we really appreciate you this evening, Nathan, taking all the time to run us through your interest.
Yeah.
But no, that was fantastic. Thanks so much. And everybody have a really wonderful evening, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Nice to see you, Heather. Nice to see you, Afonso, again. Bye. Right.
Lovely. Thank you.